other ATS EVS 533 students. This is Dr. John Schrage, and I'm recording a lecture to you today for a number of reasons. We have some reasons why the first day of class we weren't able to meet, and so I just thought I'd record a little lecture for you. You can watch it on your own time as you get ready for the first lecture of the class, which will be on Monday. As I think most of you know, I don't actually live in Nebraska. I live in southern Indiana. I used to live at Omaha and work at Creighton in a regular way, but a few years ago my position got changed to an online teaching position, and they said I could live wherever I want. So my wife, who is a dentist and is from southern Indiana, bought a practice in her hometown, and we moved there so that she could practice and be near her parents and her brother and stuff like that. We live here with my son Xavier, who just turned 6, and my other son Gabriel, who will turn 3 in February. You can see an adorable picture of them on Blue Line under faculty bio or something like that when you go to the class Blue Line page if you so desire. Anyway, I'm sure I'll find ways to incorporate my family into the lecture a couple times along the way. Our ordinary way of doing this course is actually going to be for you guys to come to the classroom in, I think it's HL 524, which is set up well to use Skype for teaching. The students actually go to the classroom, that way we can have things like discussions and so on, and people can ask questions and so on. And I will be up on the big screen in front of you. We've done this for a number of other courses, where I can be showing you PowerPoints and you can be asking questions and so on. It's like I'm there. We may have to, I think the enrollment in the class this semester is 15 students, which is kind of a little bit more than we were expecting for a class like this, but we'll make it work. We might have to have somebody who is closer to the microphone maybe moderate a little bit, because it can be hard to hear students in the back row and so on, but we'll make it work. I'm looking forward to this semester. There's a lot of reasons why this is going to be a fascinating course. This is actually the first time I've taught this particular course. In the past, we have 2 courses in the atmospheric science curriculum. There's a physical meteorology course and a physical climatology course, and they're quite different in terms of their purposes and so on. And while both of those classes are cross-listed with environmental sciences, in practice, this is the one the environmental science majors tend to choose for a number of reasons, not the least of which is the fact that the second part of the class name is climate change. Alright, well, we're going to figure out what we're going to be doing with that and so on. This is my first semester teaching it, and I have all kinds of ideas, and you're going to see that it's going to be a really interesting semester. Now, what I want to do, though, first is go over the syllabus, because that's what you do, I guess, the first day of classes. And hopefully by now you've gotten the syllabus. I've emailed it out to you, and it's also available to you on the Blue Line page. We'll go over the Blue Line page in just a few minutes, because that's where, in general, resources are going to be. Alright, so here's our class. It was scheduled for Monday, Wednesday, 12:30 to 1:45, so that'll be our usual time of meeting. And that's our classroom, Hickson Lead 524. By far the preferred email address to use for me is my Gmail address. That goes straight to my to my phone and my tablets and everything that everywhere I am. If I know that it's sometimes easier to send email to the Creighton addresses, it will get to me that way. I have some problems with the way I have my Creighton account set up. I don't always get those messages on my phone, so it's not until the next time I log in. As I discuss on the Blue Line page under course policies and so on, I will endeavor to always answer emails within 24 hours. Typically, it's like more or less immediately, but I do sometimes get kind of inundated with email messages. I have several other courses. I teach Intro, which has a couple dozen students. I teach the new ATS EVS 105, which has a couple dozen students. I have 2 other courses. I teach a couple sections of the lab, or supervise a couple sections of the labs. And so, I mean, depending on the day, if there's a test coming up or something, sometimes I'm inundated with dozens and dozens of emails, and it can be hard to keep up. So if you don't hear back from me and you need me for something, I'm not hurt if you send me another email messages to say, hey, you didn't respond to this message I sent you earlier today. I'm not hurt by any of that. I have a pretty thick skin on the subject of the trouble of email. Okay. You also can reach me on Skype. There's my ID for that. In a pinch, you can call me. I don't, in general, get in the habit of that, but you certainly can. That's my cell phone. Office doesn't really apply, but Creighton requires you put office information on there. I'm going to say that I have office hours every weekday from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. I will always be in front of a computer at that time and have my phone with me and all that kind of good stuff. I'll always be logged into Skype at that time, etc. So you can always get a hold of me during that time. You can also, of course, always email or whatever, and you're certainly welcome to get a hold of me any other time during the business day. Don't be calling me at 10 o'clock at night or something, or trying to Skype me at 10 o'clock at night. But if you, if you want to try to reach me via Skype at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, by all means try. I'll probably be sitting right here in my office and be able to answer it. I might not be able to talk at that time. We might have to use that as our opportunity to set up an appointment time where I can meet with you, because I might be getting ready for another course or whatever. But we will, I'm always here, okay? I mean, we'll make things work however you need to get a hold of me. Never be afraid to get a hold of me. All the class stuff is going to be conducted, like all the documents, all the PowerPoints, all the quizzes, etc., are handled on Blue Line. The only thing that won't be there is tests, but we'll talk about that later. So we'll again go over the Blue Line site in just a little bit to make sure you know how to navigate it and so on. This is just the course description that I copied off the registrar's website. I don't know when this description was written or which instructor who no longer works at Creighton wrote this, but it seemed like a pretty good description of broadly what we're going to be trying to do in this class, so I'd recommend reading it. I also made a little list here of the kind of the topics as I've been putting together the course, the kinds of things that I think we'll be able to see. Again, Creighton requires actually that there be a list of course topics either on the syllabus or explicitly on the Blue Line site for the course, so I just put them in here. It says here that you're supposed to always, on a syllabus, one of Creighton's rules is there's always supposed to be information about things like the dates by which you need, if you want to drop the class, or if you want to change to pass-fail, or whatever. I have those dates actually on a calendar that is available to you on Blue Line. I'll show you that in just a little bit, or you can just go to the Creighton. I have the link there as to where you can get those, okay? It's always on the registrar's website, if you didn't know. That's also where the final exam schedule is. Okay, I provided you a list of objectives for this course. I apologize that there's a little bit of a formatting problem here. First off, you need to know that that one of the main things we're going to be doing in this class is there's going to be an understanding of the kinds of systems we have in place to monitor the climate system. Things like, how does our observation network for temperature work? How does our observation network of satellites work? How do we get this information? When someone tells you that the planet is increasing in temperature at a certain rate, how do we know that? How do we calibrate those instruments? How do those networks of observation systems work? What's the difference between like the volunteer co-op system of observations versus the official networks run by like the National Weather Service or the Federal Aviation Administration or whatever? So we're going to talk about the kinds of systems of buoys and all that kind of stuff that are used to monitor the climate system. We're going to talk about the paleoclimates of both the recent past, relatively recent, climate events, certainly like in the last 100,000 years or something like that, as well as like really distant climate events like Snowball Earth, which was, hundreds of millions of years ago, and so on. We're going to talk about the basic fundamentals of what drives climate. This really fulfills the need of the course of talking about physical climatology. We're going to talk about radiative transfer in the Earth's atmosphere. We're going to talk about the Earth's energy balance, etc. That's primarily what we do in the second module of the course. The course is divided up into 4 modules. When you hear the word module, that's sort of an online teaching term for what we would probably normally call like a unit or something like that. Our second module of the course is primarily physical climatology. Role of clouds, roles of aerosols, greenhouse gases, moisture in the atmosphere, things like that. How do we know what all that is? How do we simulate that kind of stuff, etc.? And the idea of simulating, the whole third module of the course is going to be about the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's strategies about comparing models and running models for climate simulations. And then we're going to talk in the fourth module, because I know a lot of the people in this class have a particularly strong interest in things like policy and stuff like that. We're talking about what do we know about the climate and where it's going. What do the models tell us? What does our understanding of past climates tell us in terms of where climate could be going under different scenarios of how much emissions there could be and so on? What can we do to mitigate these changes? What can we do? Is geoengineering an option? Things like that. So anyway, that whole fourth module will be kind of, I think that will be kind of fun. We should be able to learn a lot about that kind of stuff there. Textbook. The primary source for this course is going to be the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 5th Assessment Report, the part called The Physical Science Basis. IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. I think you know the story about this. This is they usually say that it is a United Nations effort. It's in fact a joint effort between the United Nations and the World Meteorological Organization to create a worldwide organization of leading experts on the subject of climate to kind of put together what is the state of the science with regard to climate and climate change. And you may know that every few years they issue a report that is this enormous document, literally thousands of pages, explaining what do we know about climate, how do the observation networks work, how do we express uncertainty in climate, what should policymakers be understanding about all of this, what should the public be understanding, etc. This is our primary document. We're actually just reading one piece of it. We're not going to read the whole thing, even the physical science basis part of the report is hundreds and hundreds of pages. But there's also parts of the book that are about, the report that are about like social aspects or policy aspects or outreach aspects and so on. We probably will at best just sort of, be aware of those parts of the document. But even the physical climate basis, the physical science basis part is huge and has lots of detail and so on. But that's going to be our primary mechanism for the primary source. Now, it's actually quite possible to go to a bookstore and buy that book, but it's enormous. I think just the physical science basis part of it is somewhere in the ballpark of 1,000 pages. And it's completely available publicly online. I'll show you in just a few minutes how you access it on Blue Line. How you choose to access it. Do you want to download it to your computer? Do you want to just always, browse it from the links on Blue Line? You want to put it on a USB stick drive? I don't really care. However works for you is fine with me. But we'll be mainly doing readings from there. And then we'll supplement that as we go along. My vision for this course is that fundamentally this course is sort of an exploration of this very, very large document. The IPCC created this document through an enormous process about building consensus within the climate science community. You might even remember that in 2007, I believe it is, the IPCC shared the Nobel Peace Prize, half of the prize, the other half was Al Gore, for his work on climate science, advocacy, and so on. The IPCC is an amazing organization explicitly about bringing together people with very different opinions and finding out what they agree on and building on those parts and so on. If you've ever had to work with somebody whose opinion you disagreed with, if you have a particular opinion on an issue and they have an opposite opinion on some issue, whether that's, I don't know, anything from something in politics to whatever, you know that it's practically impossible to get somebody's mind to be changed or to find what you agree on. It's often thought that it's weird that the IPCC got a Nobel Peace Prize for their work on climate change, but actually that's exactly what they did. They took an enormous number of people with very different opinions and found out what they agree on, and found out what kind of evidence, people who disagreed about climate change, scientists, experts who disagreed on climate change, what evidence would it take to change their minds, and then found out if that evidence existed. And if it didn't exist, well, maybe those people weren't wrong, and if it did exist, made them, got them to understand, look, if you're a scientist and you say that this is what it's going to take to bring you on board with the ideas of climate change, we just showed you that. That's huge. They've changed minds. In our world, do you know how rare that is? No wonder they got the Nobel Prize. Now, back in 2007, that was for their so-called 4th assessment report. We are actually now reading their 5th assessment report, which was released, I believe, in 2013. And so that's going to be the document we're working with. But anyway, it's an even better document than what they came up with back in 2007. Anyway, we'll learn so much more about all that along the way. I certainly encourage you to read the whole business about classroom priorities and policies and so on. Make sure that you know about things like academic dishonesty and stuff like that. It's an online course, so, if you can't be there at the lecture and you let me know in advance, we can do things like record it and so on. And so we can adapt in ways that sometimes a face-to-face class can't necessarily do. So, but just make sure you read through these policies and so on. Do notice, by the way, that while technically this is not a certified writing course, the quality of any writing that you do in the class does matter. Now, I don't intend for us to be writing any reports in this class or anything like that, but like on the test there'll be essay questions and stuff like that, and if you're being egregiously bad about spelling and writing and stuff like that, I reserve the right to take points off for stuff like that, okay? Let's see here. Assignments are due at the beginning of the class on the date stated. You'll see that I have some information on there as to like when assignments are due. Basically, if things are late, there's a point that are lost about such things. Broadly speaking, it seems to me like there are 4 main ideas that kind of make each of the modules in this course. I think the first one will all be about monitoring the climate system, the observing systems that we have in place, and what they tell us about current and past climates on Earth. The physics of climate will make up our second module. What determines the climate of the Earth, the energy balance, the radiation, the fluxes of heat and moisture at the surface of the Earth, etc. Third module will all be about how we model the climate system. What are climate models? How do they work? What do they tell us that's different than, like, say, the weather prediction models that make the forecasts of tomorrow's weather? How do they work? What are their uncertainties? What are the different scenarios that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change uses when they are testing these models? How do they test the models? What is an ensemble of models? These are all ideas that we're going to be working with in the third module. And then finally, like I said, that fourth module will be our, I don't want to say fun, but I think it will be intellectually interesting and challenging to talk about this in terms of what does this mean for the future? What kind of actions can we take to possibly mitigate climate change? What way should we be adapting to climate change? Geoengineering, ideas like that. Near-term climate change versus long-term climate change. I think that's actually a really interesting direction that we can take the class towards the end. I put on here, the university, strictly speaking, requires, especially online classes, to be very clear about, like, how do we grade things? Well, a big chunk of your grade, as you're going to see, are going to come from these quizzes, which are purely objective, multiple choice questions. That's not hard to figure out how we come up with grades of that at all. And then the test will have a large amount that's kind of objective. My tests are usually a mix of, like, multiple choice, true, false, and, like, short essay questions. And so, because it can be a little bit of a mystery as to how I come up with how many points you get for different answers you give on an essay question, here in the syllabus I actually showed you how, like, this is sort of the rubric, if you will, as to how I'm grading those essay questions. You can just browse that at your will. The university does require that syllabi actually show you what we're going to use for the grading curve, and so I put one there, but to be honest, I have no preconceived idea as to how the grades are going to be distributed in this class. It won't be more strict than this. Okay, like right now I show 90 to 100 is an A. If everybody in the class has more than 90%, I'm going to give everybody an A. I'm not going to say, oh my goodness, I guess I better make it 95 to 100, okay? On the other hand, I fully expect that it's very normal. We may have to, like, push this down. Maybe 85 to 100 is A. You know what I'm saying? I mean, however it works. I have no preconceived idea as to how the grades will work, especially this being the first time I've taught this course. There are a total of 4 tests in this course, one at the end of each of the 4 modules. 3 of them we're calling midterms. They're going to occur at approximately 1/4 of the way through the semester. And then there's a final, because this is a 500 level class. Strictly speaking, the university requires that it be cumulative, although how cumulative is always an open question, and we can address that as we get closer to the final. Each of the 4 tests is 15% of your total grade, so together they make 60% of your grade. I marked 35% of the course as being a mixture of homework and quizzes. As I'm working on the course, I have to admit, so far I haven't made any homeworks. I've been just writing quizzes. The little quizzes are something that you complete after you do each of the readings. And they're basically just a way for me to prove that you did the reading, or I guess you could say for you to prove that you did the reading. Okay? You can't really get the questions right if you didn't do the readings. And so after each reading, you go up and you answer, and these quizzes are fairly short. I'm thinking on the order of like 4 to 6 multiple choice questions. They'll be on blue line, as you'll see, and you just answer them real quick at the end of doing the reading, and they just verify that you actually did it. Okay, but in theory I could do some homeworks as part of that too, but like I said, so far as I've been working on this, homework just hasn't seemed like the right tool for the job, okay? But it might be when we're getting farther into Module 2. I'm not all the way through the course by any means, and so it could very well be that along the way we decide that a homework set's a great idea. Great. And then I always make participation worth at least something. In fact, the university does require that in online courses that participation be worth something. And so, okay, 5%, whatever. I'm not anticipating anybody not participating in the class, so I don't think that's a big problem. The readings will always be given to you. I'll be emailing to remind you. I mean, I'm kind of a nag about things like that, so don't worry about that. The university also likes us to have some kind of zombie apocalypse warning in the event of some kind of disruption of normal classroom activities, because this is not a completely online course where you could be sitting in your dorm room fending off zombies while clicking through on Blue Line and watching PowerPoints. Because this actually requires we meet, we have to have a zombie apocalypse type warning on here that just basically says that in the event of emergency, we reserve the right to make changes to the course. Okay? I don't know why Creighton General Counsel requires this, but and again, I think not all teachers remember to put it in and stuff like that. But basically, in the event of terrorist attack, even things like big measles outbreaks on campus or whatever, they require that we have some kind of explanation that we will, in fact, adapt. Okay? I think this class would be easier to adapt than most. The leadership of the environmental science program met and talked about this course, and one of the things they decided is that we should make it the kind of class where we meet via Skype so that it's more interactive, etc. Most of you know that I also do classes that are completely online in the sense that the students just go on their own schedule and watch videos and read through PowerPoints and read through handouts and so on. And we will have days, much like this, where it's just a pre-recorded lecture from time to time, just so that everybody knows what's going on. You may or may not know that my younger child actually has a number of disabilities, and part of what's good about the situation of working from home is that it gives me the ability to keep a lot of his appointments, okay? He has a lot of doctor appointments and therapy appointments and so on, and while in general those are not scheduled for the same time as our classes, from time to time it happens. A doctor is only in at this time or whatever, and so we may from time to time just have to not meet and have a pre-recorded lecture instead, and I know that you guys will be perfectly cool with that, okay? Alright, so anyway, we've gone through the syllabus. I thought I'd show you a little something about the Blue Line site here. I've published the course to Blue Line, so it should be available to you now. That course, there's a number of different views I can give you on, I can choose when I'm designing a course on Blue Line, and I chose the module view for this class as I normally do, which means that there's a module up here or a unit that's just sort of the welcome to this course section up here that has things like the course objectives and my biography and information about the book and our schedule and all that kind of stuff here. The syllabus is here. There's an orientation about Blue Line that actually is something the university put together if you need that. I also put a calendar here that has nothing for this particular course, but it has all the dates that I picked off of the university's official calendar for this semester, like when is midterms, what is the date for dropping courses, when's the date for adding courses, when is Easter, when is spring break, when is finals week, all that kind of stuff. So that's on there if you need it. This is the link for the IPCC 5th Assessment Report. And so if you access that document here, what you're going to see here is there's a little overhead here. And then it says, click here to access the physical science basis. This is one of the 4 books that makes up the full IPCC Assessment Report 5. And this over here is the report by chapters. That's what we typically do. So like for example, I believe the first reading that you're doing is from chapter 1. And so you click on there, and exactly how this looks will depend on what browser you're using. But if I choose chapter here, you actually get the chapter. When I give you page numbers, they are the page numbers that actually appear on the pages themselves. Notice, for example, that in this case, I mean, like the first page of this chapter is page 119, because there's a whole bunch of preface material and so on. But like in this PDF, that's page 1. Okay, that can be kind of confusing. I always give the page numbers in terms of what it actually shows on the page itself. Like this is page 119. So I think the first reading I tell you is like page 119 to 123 or something, which is this page right here. I would like you to actually read this chapter preview as part of it, but then this is the next reading when we start with section 1.2. Alright, so anyway, there's a whole lot of good stuff in here. You can see that this report goes through all kinds of things about observations and biogeochemical cycles and the carbon cycle and greenhouse gases and near-term climate change, sea level change, and all kinds of good stuff in here. And like I said, we may actually go and look at some of the other documents as well, which are about things like policy and social changes and things like that too, but I wouldn't get bogged down on that at this exact moment here. So anyway, that's where we are going to be seeing this IPCC Fitz Assessment Report. I will probably be doing things like scanning some other readings and so on along the way as well. The IPCC report isn't necessarily designed all that well for teaching, but because it is really the defining document right now of the state of the knowledge of our understanding of climate and climate change, it's really a good place to be starting. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show you here is, okay, when I'm logged in as me, you can see I'm currently a student. I can see that there's more stuff here, but I'm going to just be releasing it to you chunk at a time. And so, like right now, you can see that by 10 a.m. on Monday, January, whatever the next Monday is, the 20, what is my next Monday? 18th. You can always hover your mouse, by the way, I believe, over these things to get, if it's hiding it for you. There it goes. Where are we at here? There. By 10 a.m. Monday, January 18th at 2016. Alright, this is the video that you're watching right now. This is the reading for you, and then you would go online and take the quiz. Okay, those are the materials that you need to have completed by 10 o'clock on Monday morning. That way we continue lecturing at that time. Okay, now there's something I want to talk to you about, though, with regard to this class and how it fits into the broader curriculum of what you're doing and what that means for our course. And I just going to make a little PowerPoint slide here to show you what I'm talking about. This is ATS EVS 533, Physical Climatology and Climate Change. Strictly speaking, it's not a prerequisite for this course, but most of you probably have taken ATS EVS 113, these so-called Introduction to Atmospheric Science courses. While strictly speaking it's not a prerequisite for this course, I believe basically all environmental science majors and definitely all atmospheric science majors take that. Alright, now what you may or may not know is that there's a new course in our curricula that is ATS EVS 105, The Science of Climate Change. Nobody in this class this semester has taken that class because it's new. This is the first semester of that class. That is a new Modus Core curriculum course. This is this new curriculum that probably most of you guys, since you're upperclassmen, aren't part of. You're probably part of what was called Legacy Core. The new students who have started enrolling have Modus Core as their requirements, and they need to pick 2 science courses that work as a pair, and Science of Climate Change being one, and then Atmospheric Sciences to talk more about weather will be another. Now, you might notice if you look at this here, then there's sort of an issue. Science of Climate Change, Physical Climatology and Climate Change. These 2 courses have really similar titles. And you'll notice that they are radically different in terms of the number. ATS 105, ATS 533. So they're very similar material, well, they're very similar topics, but radically different levels of material. Okay, well, in the future, by the next time this course is taught, which will probably be 2 years from now, probably most of the students who take 533 will have had 105, and will be able to adapt to that, okay? There'll be certain things they already know about climate change and so on. But this semester, because nobody has had 105, we're kind of in an interesting spot. So what I want you to understand is, sometimes there's going to be a lot of similarity between what we're talking about in 533 versus what we're talking about in 105. Maybe your roommate is taking EVS 105, Science of Climate Change, and you're in this other class. Because that's the first semester of 105, and this is the first time I'm teaching 533, what's going to happen is some of this material will a little bit overlap, okay? If there is something I'm telling them in 105 that it's really hard to be a student in a class called Physical Climatology and you don't know, well, I might end up using, like, I'll be using their PowerPoint as sort of a starting point for us, okay? So, or maybe like we'll watch a video that they're watching as sort of setting up the background before we go into it in more detail for the 500 level version of the course. So if you know people in ATS EVS 105 or whatever, or if like I send you some video to watch and I mention that this is, hey, welcome ATS EVS 105 students, don't be like offended or something like that. No, I'm just filling in the background, okay? We are adapting to the fact that there's going to be things in this new course that gives insights into science of climate change that you may not have seen when you took ATS 113 or EVS 113, depending on how it was listed that semester. Okay, so I don't want you to like be freaked out if every now and then like there's a PowerPoint and some of the slides say ATS 105 or EVS 105, okay? I'm not like somehow or other treating you like you're getting a 100 level education on this stuff. No, it's just that maybe I'm filling in some background and reusing some slides from a different class. Okay, I know that that would be something that would confuse me if I were a student in this 500 level class, so I thought I'd just get that straightened out. The 105 class, because students don't necessarily have any background at all, is pretty basic. I mean, a lot of the stuff that they're learning in that class, Creighton has requirements as to the kinds of things you learn in a new Modus Core Understanding Science course, like the scientific method, or units, okay? I don't think anybody in this class needs to have a refresher on meters and kilograms and degrees Celsius. The 105 book actually has to talk about things like the difference between Celsius and Fahrenheit. Okay, I'm guessing you guys are pretty comfortable with that. I don't need to teach you guys the difference between Celsius and Fahrenheit. So, I mean, there's a big difference. On the other hand, like, for example, when that course is talking about climate models, well, that might actually be a pretty good background for you guys before we talk about models in more detail. So I might very well like send you guys the video that I make for that class when we start climate models in this class. Okay. Anyway, I just wanted you to understand what's going on here with that. Okay, that's what the details about that. Okay. So for Monday, I marked it down as being by 10 a.m. You need to have completed this video. You need to have read that first little 4 pages or whatever it is of the IPCC report and answer a quick little set of questions about that lecture, that reading. All right. I think that's everything. I'm sure that if we had been together, you guys would have had questions, and so please email me any questions you have about the syllabus or the policies of the course or whatever. And I'm looking forward to a great semester. I'll see you guys later.